bunch of stills. Maybe it'll make a video.
That's what they tell me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Go for it.
All right, so we're going to talk about the Midas M32R soundboard. It is exactly the same as the Midas M32 or the X32, which is a Behringer product. They're sister companies. Both were designed by Midas engineers. The Midas M32R is just the smaller, more compact version of the full-blown Midas M32. And the reason I mention all of that is because if you look for videos on YouTube, there are tons of them, hundreds to be exact. And they all will tell you how to do it, because both, all of their boards operate exactly the same, and they are 40, in reality, they say they're 32 channel boards, they're really 40 channel boards, because they handle 32 preamps. The R version doesn't have actually 32 on the back of it, but it can process 32 plus 8 auxes. And the auxes are like 1/4 inch or RCA jacks that are on the back of the board. And actually, you can even assign those 8 to a stage box and end up with a total of 40 preamps. Now I'll explain what preamps are here in just a second. But basically, the number of channels it'll handle is 40. That's 40 inputs. It'll handle 16 outputs. The way we have this configured right now is you've got the board here. The only inputs on the back of the board, the only cables connected to it, power cord, a network cable, a stage box cable, and those are both Cat 6s, and then Ethernet cables, and then a RCA cable that runs over to the computer. And that is absolutely it that you need plugged into the back of this board. Then all of your inputs, for the most part, except for the computer, are on a stage box back in the equipment room, which we can go look at in a minute, and a stage box over here at the stage. Those stage boxes can handle up to 16 inputs and up to 8 outputs. Now the way we've got them configured is on the output side, they mimic the outputs on the back of this board. So you've got 8, basically 1 through 8 are over here at the stage box of the stage, and 9 through 16 are over in the equipment room. Reason for that is usually most of the boards utilize the last 2 outputs for your speakers. So that would be 15 and 16, and that's what we're utilizing here. So not that you couldn't configure any of those 16 to be an output, you can, but that's the way they usually do it. So that's why we configured it that way. But the inputs on those 2 stage boxes are completely separate from the back of the board. So we've got 16 over there in the equipment room and 16 over here in the stage box. So we've got plenty of inputs, up to 16 inputs over here on stage that we can plug stuff in. Technically 15 minus the lectern mic, because it ties up one of those. And then we've got up to 8, the capability for up to 8 outputs over here at stage. So if you wanted to put any stage monitors over here like you previously had, not that anyone necessarily wants that, because it adds a lot of echo, because those always get turned up. They do have their own personal mixers, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Back to the preamps that I was talking about, and I'm covering a lot of technical stuff up front, and then we'll dive into how the board works. The preamps are little amplifiers, basically, that take analog inputs and convert that to digital, and allow you to use faders and gain to be able to control the levels of the volume of the audio coming in. Actually, the gain is controlling those preamps. The faders are controlling the output. You will notice every time that I am working with the board, I set the master, which is the one on the far right here, the fader on the far right. The master is always set at 0. So that line of 0 is normal output. Anything lower than that is basically a decrease in output, and anything above that is a increase in normalized output. So the mains I always leave at 0, then I adjust everything else accordingly to produce the volume that we're looking for. Now, if you're in a panic situation where you're getting feedback or you're getting a lot of a loud level, but everything is a good level, and you just want to bring the whole system down a little bit, you could always bring your master down a little bit. I try not to. I try not to adjust for that. But generally, I leave it at 0 if possible. It's an interactive video. So, let's see. So the preamps are just converting, they're converting that analog to digital audio. They're also allowing you to put gain on it, which is, I'm going to show you here in just a minute, which is in the top left, I think, on that board. Yeah, right there. So, gain generally you do not want to adjust for the most part anytime. Once it's all set, which I've been trying to perfect it over the last few weeks. Now that we've got the new speakers in here, I will perfect it this Sunday based on those speakers. And I would suggest that you not adjust it unless you say change a guitar or change a keyboard or something like that. Then you might want to adjust your gain a little bit. But basically that gain is just adjusting the level of the amplification of that preamp that's coming in. Now, the one thing I will say, and I'll get back to the personal mixers again a little bit later, when the musicians are using the personal mixers, they are unaffected by any of the changes on the board except for gain. Gain is the only thing that messes with them. So if they say they can't hear something and they've got it turned all the way up in the personal mixer, then you're going to have to give it some more gain on that channel, and in which case you'll probably have to bring your faders down a little bit to accommodate that. Let's see, but that's the only thing that you can impact them with, is if you are adjusting the gain. So that's another reason why you don't want to mess with the gain. Is once they get their settings, then you don't want to mess with that. The speakers, I'll just make a comment about the speakers while we're talking about the generics of all of this. The speakers are EQ'd in the actual amplifier for them for the room. So they have a modified custom setting. Okay, let me rephrase that. They have a setting based on these speakers in that amplifier, and then modified slightly for this room to give a better sound. They do have a pretty good coverage throughout the entire room, except for on stage, because they're facing this way and not towards the stage. So, but you still can hear it up there, and we can demo that here in a little bit. Let's see, so before we get into the details of the actual mixing board itself, and this is a digital mixing board, so it does have multiple layers, and we'll get into all of those. Why don't we wander over to the equipment room real quick and just see what the brains behind all of it is.